So that's a good segue into, man, I'm super pumped and excited to have Adrienne Dopf. What is your full married name now?
Okay, so it is still actually Adrienne Dopf because, well, the last name is Baranowski, which is like an enormous last name. So like a really long first name and a really long last name. Okay. But I also kept it because I've built my career.
Yeah.
And so like the equity in my name is something I wanted to maintain. But yeah, Adrienne Baranowski.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, so Adrienne and I went to college together, both went to KU. I kept in touch over the years. And Adrienne, I'll let you give some story in her background, but account director at DEG here in Kansas City, worked with a couple of different agencies. Arguably the three best, like biggest, most well-established agencies in Kansas City. I'm really, really interested to hear how you got where you're at, and just give a background to our audience on how you are and where you got.
Yeah, for sure. And thanks for having me. I'm pretty excited about this. So, like you said, Ryan, started at KU, studied advertising. Back then it was like media. Yeah. Like what we talked about was media. And at that point it was traditional media. Radio, TV, that type of stuff. Digital. Yeah, it was pre-internet, right? So, I, got my degree and I started selling advertising just like pretty much anybody does when you get out of that field. And as I was, selling for the Star, I'm having these conversations with all these different clients and they're like, oh, well, we're using direct mail and we're using all these other forms of media. And I was like, I have no idea what those are. Like the only thing I learned about was like radio and TV and that type of stuff. So I actually ended up just quitting my job, decided to go to grad school in Denver, moved out there for about 6 years, got my MBA in marketing. And then I worked for a promotions agency out there for a couple of years and decided then to come back to go work at VML.
How long were you at the Star?
About 2 years. Okay. Yeah, about 2 years. And so then, I came back at VML, dream job. This was an agency that actually, like, I had moved to Denver, and the week of orientation for grad school, their HR director called me, and they're like, hey, we actually have a job we want to interview you for. And I was like, sorry, but let's stay in touch. So we did, and 6 years later, I was back. And so worked there for, several years doing branding, and this entire time, I had actually learned a lot in the digital space. That's, Facebook started coming out, and websites, and that type of stuff. And it's so funny to kind of look back at how we used to approach that back then. No staging environments and just like push things live and like the risk that we were
it's Friday at 4, just hit the button, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we'll be fine over the weekend. No e-com stuff going on there. There's no way to do that. But and then I got to work with a lot of different cool brands. I worked at eBags for a little while, where there was a lot of, the online retail, and then so when I came back, I did a lot of branding, did a lot of digital, and then, like you said, just kind of hopped around to a couple of agencies and landed at DEG in the last couple of years.
So VML is awesome. Like VML, in my mind, set the standard for agencies in Kansas City.
Yeah,
I mean, I worked for VML for a year and had a great time there, learned a lot. If it wasn't for like a random startup offer, I probably would still be at VML.
Yeah.
Because I have nothing but respect what those guys did, and just the whole team and the culture and everything about VML just screams innovation, and they really admire what that team has built. I'm curious. You did VML, and then you were at In Touch for a while.
Yep.
And now DEG, and I feel the same. I don't know a ton about In Touch, to be honest. A couple of our Jim Passantino, his wife, worked at In Touch for a long time, but I don't know a ton about In Touch. But what I'm curious about is those three agencies, in terms of like the new blood in Kansas City. Those three agencies are the three that I would mention.
Yeah.
I've met Neil a couple times. I had dinner with him maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and he was nice enough to allow me to pick his brain about, agencies and how to grow one. And I have a funny story about Neil that I'll share that is I think is really cool. I've got a ton of respect for him.
Same.
What's the common denominator? Like those three agencies, like what do you see as the thing, like that is similar across those three that maybe is different with other groups?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with their culture, to be honest. I think, there's always kind of the joke of, we work hard, we play hard, that type of stuff. Like, you're going to put in your hours, but you're also going to learn a lot, and you're going to enjoy the people that you work with. And they create these environments so that you are like facilitating conversations, and you're learning from each other, and you're hiring the right people that are forthcoming with knowledge. And I think that's the most important thing is, as I look back on my career, all the different places that I worked, where did I learn the most? And there's some places that I spent, a short amount of time. I spent 2 years at, but I learned far more than some of the places that I spent, 4 years at. And
why do you think you learn more at an agency like that? Like, do you think it's, it's ingrained in the culture, but is it because the people are closer to the work?
I think the people are closer to the work. I think people like to share. And essentially, and this is kind of a theme that I set for my own team, was elevating. And so as you can elevate other people, we all end up elevating. And so then you continue to work at a higher and higher level. And so I think people want to share because either there's a gap there and there's something that maybe you're not making the same connection on. And so if they can educate you and kind of elevate you, then you're all going to be working on the same level. And so those gaps are filled. And then as you continue to work together, you're all thinking the same way and you're working towards the same goal, versus, a situation to where people keep things close to the chest, or they see it as a competition.
Hoarding information.
Totally, and that's just not really how you're going to thrive in the world. And even as you think about your own personal relationships, you're really going to jive with the people that are forthcoming with information that you bond over different topics or activities. And so if you bring that into the workplace, and these places they foster these environments, right? They've got like beer on tap, and they've got games, they've got ping pong, it's things like that create these social environments where you can have those conversations and bond over things. And I think then that rolls into your work.
Interesting. I mean, we're obviously, we're small, right? We're 15 and aspiring to get to where those three groups are, if I'm being frank. And the thing that we pride ourselves on is this sort of figure it out mentality, And I think that what I'm hearing you say is that these groups, they all have that, elevating and wanting to learn. And this, let me ask you about fear. Do you think this concept of fear and fear of not knowing the answer, fear of having someone else maybe be better at what, the job is, contributes to maybe agencies that don't have that kind of culture?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, I guess, if you're sitting there and you're either worried that, you don't have the right answers, or you get frustrated if you're having a conversation and someone is like, oh, have you thought about this? And you kind of take it personally. You set yourself back because you're focused on the wrong thing. When everybody should be working in a collaborative environment, and you're all contributing because you're all subject matter experts in a certain area. And so you have to work together in order to create that cohesive plan. And so if you do have someone that is more worried about that, they're unfortunately kind of holding themselves back, and then it holds the entire team back. Yeah,
that's a great point. What about mistakes? Like, one of the things that we have tried to, and we haven't really done a great job of this, but I think we've tried at least, is to publish the losses along with the wins. Like a lot of agencies, and I guess not just agencies, but brands, though, and it sort of touches on social media too. Like, if you watch Instagram, you're only going to see the good shit.
Yeah.
You're going to see how happy someone is and how awesome. Like, if you watch all these internet marketing gurus, it's all about, I just got this Lambo and here's a screenshot of my Shopify account and I'm making all this money and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But they don't show you the 8 campaigns that they ran that lost money before that.
Right.
And we really have tried to, like, Gary Vaynerchuk says it, document, don't create. Like, document the process.
Yeah.
Learn as you go. Yeah. And I feel like that's hard in an agency.
I think it
because
is.
Your clients want you to always have the answers.
Right. Right. But I think they're a little bit more forgiving and understand, like, we're all human.
Yeah.
Right. And so as this digital space kind of evolves and really how customers want to engage with the brands and what their motivations are and their behaviors, that's all changing, and it's changing rapidly. And so you're going to make a misstep, and that's okay, right? I think the most important thing is that you learn from it.
Yeah.
And just like you said, document it. And it's like, and I'll do that to my team too. It's like, hey guys, totally missed this one. I should have done this, but here's how we're going to fix it. And it's, you know, holding myself accountable or holding whoever accountable and just learning from it. And I always say that we, you know, we win together, but we lose together. Yeah. Right. Exactly. And it's the, you know, what is the mantra of like fail fast.
Yeah. Fail
fast. And so you have to just, as long as you learn from it. And that's something too, I think that's back to your question on fear is, you know, people are afraid to fail. Yeah. It's like, you can't be afraid to fail because then you're not even taking the risks that you need to be really successful, and you miss opportunities.
Yeah. That's a great point. I mean, especially with something as abstract as digital marketing, like, It changes so fast, and you know, even with COVID, like in the last 18 months, e-commerce has gotten flipped on its head.
Oh my gosh,
like
insane.
Completely. Yeah. And like I always joke, you know, anybody that says that they have this shit figured out is a liar or delusional. Yeah. You know, like no one has it figured out. Like there are some experts, and we had a conversation internally the other day about like, well, we're experts in this, and while I feel like we are very good. Like if you can call yourself an expert, then something's off.
Yeah.
Like you know, and maybe that's not the right way to look at it. But the point, I guess, is that no one. This stuff changes so fast that no one's really an expert.
Yeah. I was going to say, how fleeting is that?
Like think about TikTok, for example. Like this shit is going wild, and we're learning it. Like we're flying the plane as we're building the plane as we're flying it. You know, and I found in the last 7 years building this agency that the more honest you are with your clients about that, the more they trust you.
Yes.
You know? Like if you tell your clients, oh, this is what we're going to do, this is going to work, we have 15 other clients that are doing it this way, you know, it better well work. Otherwise, if you tell them, look, this is our hypothesis.
Yeah.
We think this is likely what's going to happen. You know, if you commit to this strategy, you know, this is where we're headed, and I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think those are the client relationships that are the most successful.
Yeah.
And that's really where I focus too. I mean, the account director role is a client relationship team.
Yeah.
And so it's those that I've developed the most trust with and kind of bonded over little things that I continuously have them come back to me to say, what do you think about this? And, you know, that's so important, is to have those conversations with them and understand what are their pain points and what are the things keeping them up at night. And then it's, you know, throwing out a couple of ideas and saying, okay, let's try it. And let's, again, you know, win or fail together. But at least we check something out.
You know, you hit on a good point. So we talk a lot about this concept of collaborative versus transactional, right? And like there are and transactional is fine. Like there are times when transactional is okay, but like when I think about collaborative versus transactional, the relationship that you just described to me with a client as an account director is collaborative, right? You're problem solving, you're in the weeds, you're rolling up your sleeves, you're figuring out things together. Transactional would be, I need to buy a website. I have a budget of $5,000 or $50,000, whatever the number is. I want to buy a widget, and you know, and it's transactional. The second you cross that line, it becomes collaborative. When you're thinking for a client, you know, and collaborating with them. I'm assuming, and I'm making a big leap here, but I'm guessing, if I know anything about you and DEG in general, your client relationships are collaborative.
Yeah. Every single one of them.
Yeah. So tell me, okay, this is a good segue into your role. And tell me about, I don't even know like the specific clients, but I'm curious like what types of clients. Is it e-commerce brands?
Yeah.
Is it, tell me about the clients that you're working with and the kinds of maybe problems that they're struggling with.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I do work with a variety of brands. And so I work with brands that are in the grocery space and the direct-to-consumer space, home improvement space. So it's, you know, I'm kind of jumping from vertical to vertical, but I would say the majority of them are really just making sure that they're connecting with their customers. And we've talked a little bit before about, you know, is it acquisition? Is it retention? You know, everybody has that like that kind of similar journey that they want their customers to go on, and what are the tactics that are going to work, and what are the best channels to deliver these tactics, and so we're all working together to try to figure out what do customers want, and how can we hit our goals while still delivering what the customers want. And I think then at the end of the day, it's back to your point of collaboration, because customers are so much more trusting right now, and then when they find a brand that they feel like they align with, they want to have a relationship, and they expect that if they're going to hand over their precious contact information and things about them, that you're going to reciprocate, and you're going to say, oh, okay, well then I'm going to give you this really cool gated content, or I'm going to make you a VIP, or I'm going to give you all these, bragging rights or bonus points or whatever it is that's within their loyalty program, because we're building a relationship together. And as you continue to have this kind of symbiotic relationship, you're both benefiting. The customer is getting what they need, and then the company is getting what they need in the form of revenue or whatever their metrics are.
This is a leading question, but do you think brands think more about acquisition than they do retention? I
think they did.
Okay.
I think the pandemic changed.
Really?
I do. And maybe it's just selfishly thinking about the brands that I work on, because that's kind of my mentality right now. But I will say, with every single client that I've talked to them about a loyalty program. And it's like, okay, this is great. We spent X number of dollars getting all of these leads. How are you managing them? How are you converting them? How are you reminding them that you are the right choice, even if they're not at a point to convert? And then as you continue to kind of nurture them, then how do you then move them from a conversion point to a loyalist and even an advocate? And those are the ones that, you've invested your time and your money into, and they're going to go back and kind of sell it for you. And so I think as people are kind of stuck in their homes, or even kind of change their behaviors, the businesses realize that, hey, I'm spending a lot of money getting these leads in here, but the people that are consistently coming back and they're continuously buying, and I can do an upsell or a cross sell of my products, that's where where I'm making the most money. And I think everybody's probably heard the stats before of, it costs more to acquire a customer than it is to maintain one. And so I think that's, as people and companies were looking at, okay, well, what's my margin look like, and what are my revenue goals, and how is this being impacted by the pandemic? They started looking at those loyal users, and how can you leverage them in order to hit your sales? How
much do you think clients think about that when they plan their paid media budgets? We were just talking about, like, with one specific client, about paid media strategy and their average order values and lifetime values and all that, and like thinking about how to allocate their paid media budget, but to do it in a way that was more retention focused.
Yeah.
One of the things that I struggle with, I wish I had a whiteboard. We need to figure out a whiteboard, like, right here, so we can start drawing stuff. But like everyone talks about the funnel, right? You got the funnel and the top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, aware, unaware, solution, unaware, whatever, conversions at the bottom. I've been thinking about this funnel with, like, this big ball at the bottom, which is your current customers.
Yeah.
I feel like 9 out of 10 brands focus on the funnel and not on the ball at the bottom. Retention, loyalty, rewards.
Yeah.
And I think I shared with you recently, I'm a owner of an e-commerce brand, and I'm starting to see the world through that lens, and it's like, my goodness, like, of 10 hours spent, 8 of it needs to be spent on loyalty and retention,
right,
versus acquisition. Because if you can, the better your LTVs are, the more you can spend to acquire.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're always going to have those campaigns where, you are looking to acquire, but there's an incentive behind it. So it's a promotion, or you've got, like, a certain dollar off. And so people will sign up for that. But I think it's interesting to see their behaviors after that offer expires. For example, one of my clients has, you come to their website and you get 15% off your first purchase whenever you hand over your email address.
Okay.
And so after someone makes that first purchase, it's really interesting to see when their next point of engagement is. And sometimes we'll get unsubscribes because all they want is that dollar off.
Unsubs?
Yeah.
So they just want the discount, and then
they just want the discount and they're out. And so it's interesting to see what that trade-off then is. And as
Casey's,
you're
offering us beers. Are you want a beer?
I'm good.
It's okay.
So you're saying people they take the deal and then they bounce?
They're out. Yeah. And you'll see that a lot with like sweepstakes or stuff like that, but which is, a major driver of people signing up, the HGTV, I want that dream home. But then do you really want that content afterwards? And I think that's something to evaluate too with your media buy, is make sure it's not so broad that you're kind of missing who your audience is, who your personas are that you're supposed to be going after, that mimic the loyalist, because you want to model it off of your loyalists, right? And like figure out their demographics and figure out their behaviors and their influencers. And then that's how you go back and you find lookalike audiences when you do your acquisition plan.
Yeah, 100%. Caleb, we need to clip that.
Dude, I was thinking the same thing.
Okay, so that brings me to a point where I'm interested to get your perspective on this. So and I'm guilty of this too. Like I want ROAS, right? I want return on ad spend. If I put $1 in, I want 5 out, right? It doesn't always work out that way. And you got to figure out how the top of the funnel contributes. And one of the things that we've, with our clients and the brands that I manage as well, is we're really struggling, or not struggling, but trying to figure out the value of an email address. Like how much is it worth for us to acquire an email? And we're in the midst of some tests with our clients. So we do this stuff all the time for clients, trying to figure out how to tweak the offer. Is it a percentage off? Is it, joining a loyalty program? Is it a dollar amount off? All those things. Talk to me about some of the things, and again, I don't need I'm not curious. I'm not interested in specifics around a given client, but generally, what are some trends that you're seeing around how to build an email list and thoughts on just building an email list in general? Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I think a lot of it has to do with those offers. So, as you're driving awareness, obviously someone is in the market for your product, and for whatever reason, right? Say it's a skincare product. So it's summertime and I'm looking for something to, sunscreen, right? Okay. So I happen to be looking for swimsuits and beach vacations and stuff like that. And so as there's, the whole network out there, they're kind of tracking what I'm engaging in. And so I've got a brand that pops up on Instagram and they say, hey, we've got this really great sunscreen. I think where I'm more likely to click is if you're going to be presenting content to me that I find relevant. Okay. So if you're going to show me a family with littles, okay, cool. My kids are older. So what's that content? Like, what are you pushing out there that is going to resonate better with me? That's going to make me more likely to click. Sometimes the offers is what pulls me in. Sometimes I want that 15% off. Let me test out your product, see if it's worth it. The only thing I've handed over is my email address. And once I hit unsubscribe, you can't use that anymore. So I think it's interesting to kind of play around with the different offers and the different ways that you can pull in the lists. There's a lot of stuff that you can put on websites. So as you track the user and understand what their engagement is and what their intent is, especially if they, engage with your search or if they click on multiple product pages, you can get an idea of that. And so as you serve up a little bit more of a customized content, because obviously there's code on that site that's tracking me. You can really understand what's going to resonate best. And so if you notice that I'm going to start leaving a site, if you give me a pop-up and you ask for my address, okay, that's fine. I'll do that as well. So there's a lot of different tactics that you could do. Do
you still hear people saying, pop-ups are annoying, I don't want to do that? The UX team, 5 years ago, the UX team, trying to get them to put a pop-up on a website was like, we're not doing that. Are you crazy?
Yeah.
Now it's like...
where I hate pop-ups is when I first get to your website. Like within the first couple of seconds, don't give me your offer. I haven't even explored your products yet. I don't even know what your brand stands for. I don't know if it aligns with my values. And so give me a second. I get it when it's at a point where, the person is leaving or maybe like they've abandoned a cart and just making sure you're trying to secure that. So I think there's a time and a place for it. Don't love them on mobile because a lot of times the screen kind of takes over and I can't find that X or maybe the X is the same color as the background, intentionally. So
we're just
things to be mindful of.
Yeah, you're right. It's hard to... I think, matter of fact, when I was having breakfast with you the other day, I showed you the pop-up that was on our site, and I couldn't find the X. You couldn't close it, Yeah, you're right. It's annoying. But the damn things convert,
They do.
Like 5 to 10%, 15 on a good day.
Yeah.
And we've had a hard time, balancing that with if you're spending all this money on paid media, you got to be acquiring email addresses because I don't know what your experience has been. I'd be interested to hear your perspective, but like every year I hear email is dead. Email is dead. Email, it's just like never dies.
I don't think it's dead at all.
Yeah,
and I think
it's
so much more sophisticated now because, and like admittedly, before I joined DEG, I didn't really understand the level of sophistication that it takes to send out an email, like to build an email. It is mind blowing.
It's a full-time job.
It is.
For sure.
No, it absolutely is.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting, all the different platforms that are out there that integrate, that speak to each other and can even you can program emails to go out automatically.
Yeah.
And that like creates all these efficiencies from a marketer's standpoint, but it's amazing how well it works.
Yeah. It's the channel that like, we were just talking about this earlier, but 9 out of 10 of our clients come to us through the I need more traffic door. Uh-huh. They're always like, well, it's either SEO or more traffic, right? Like I need an SEO person. Well, don't get me started on SEO. Like I love SEO. I think it's important, but just because you're a digital marketing company doesn't mean you're an SEO firm.
Right. That's true. Yeah.
SEO is like, I feel like people take this SEO concept and broaden it into everything digital. SEO is, I always say you don't need an SEO strategy. You need a client acquisition strategy. If SEO is a tactic within that, awesome.
Yeah.
But email is the one that people always forget about. Like I want more traffic.
Right.
But what about the 10,000 people that are on your email list or 50,000 or 100,000, whatever the number is?
Yeah. It's all about how you communicate with them because as they give you more and more information and they engage with your email, or if they click through some type of content and they go to your website, you're collecting all of this information and you're writing it back to your profile. Ideally, right? This is the ideal marketer scenario. You've got a customer relationship management platform. You've got a marketing automation platform that sends out all of your emails, and they speak to each other and they speak with your commerce site as well. And everything is integrated and they're just constantly talking to each other. And so what content that they have visited on your website and left, and then you serve it up in your email and it's like, hey, here's a discount because you left this pair of jeans at Madewell. Or we saw you checking out, the swimsuit section. Yep. Here's a coupon. And so you're learning all about these people and they're telling you this information without really feeling like they're telling you this information. So you can go into your marketing list and you can segment based on that type of engagement. And so if you're not doing that, then there's a really missed opportunity because they're telling you what they want from you.
So let me ask you this. I mean, getting clients to, again, we get a lot of clients that come to us through I need more traffic. Our ads aren't working. We need more, visibility, reach, clicks, whatever. But in reality, email and retention and mining the customer data that you already have is maybe where we should start. And I'm curious, and getting clients to invest in that is a challenge because typically, or at least from my experience, the mindset is, well, we already acquired those people.
Right.
We need to get more.
Right.
So investing resources in extracting more value of an asset that they already have is different than we want to acquire new customers. Right. I'm curious, in terms of staffing, like what does an email team look like for you guys? I mean, is it 5 people? Is it based on how big the client is? Is it
depends
based
on the volume.
It
depends on the volume. I mean, we have some clients that have, several campaign managers that are working on their emails on a full-time basis every single week. Campaign specialists that help to support them. And so we have at DEG, we have an entire department fully dedicated to that. Yeah. That's awesome. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
DEG is deep into, it was ExactTarget at the time, now Salesforce Cloud,
now Salesforce.
Right? Okay, it's one of the things Neil did 100% right, man.
Yeah.
He went all over that. Yeah.
Yeah, technology is where it's at.
Yeah. Okay, so shifting gears a little bit from email, the new hotness is SMS. So how deep are you guys into that?
Yes. Yeah, we do that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it working? Is it we're barely getting into it, but it's early.
Yeah, it is early. Admittedly, I haven't had a chance to work on a campaign other than text this to a short code and we'll sign you up. I think what I'm finding is that it's not just for B2C anymore. It's not just for consumers. There's a lot of businesses that are using it to connect with leads.
Interesting.
And a lot of it has to do with a captivated audience. So obviously, as a business person, you're constantly looking for communication.
Okay.
And so you've got your phone. Most people have their phone on them or near them
Like
a
B2B
majority
lead
of the
gen?
time. Once you
B2B
get
e-commerce, yes.
once you start getting someone within your funnel. So not necessarily from an acquisition standpoint, but part of your acquisition strategy. So say they've already handed over some type of contact information. Maybe they went to your website, they filled out a form. The phone number is in there. You've got your opt-in. Because you have that captivated audience, a lot of times they'll respond very quickly because it's probably something that it just happened, right? Maybe they just filled out your form within the last 24 hours.
Interesting.
You're getting some type of engagement there because when you've got a sales lead that's hot, you want to keep it hot versus maybe doing it through email and maybe, eventually getting them into a drip campaign. So you don't always have that kind of back and forth communication and SMS allows for that.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's some limitations there, but
finding this different generational. I mean, this is something that Gen Z
that's
is
a great
really
question.
into. I'd be curious to hear Jake Bjorth's, commentary on that. But he's a Gen Z guy.
Yeah.
It's funny the SMS thing. I always get annoyed when I get them.
Yeah.
But I never cancel.
Yeah.
Like I've never, and then they all say click, reply stop if you don't want to get these.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier to say reply stop than it is to unsub from an email.
Yeah.
I've never once unsubbed from an SMS because there's 3 brands that I get SMSs from. I get them from Faherty, it's a men's clothing brand. I get emails or SMSs from Free Fly. And I can't think of the other one, but they're brands that I want to hear from.
Yeah.
So,
I get mine from Kate Spade. It tells me all about the sales, and you might have already sent me an email about it. I follow you on social media. I already know that you've got a sale coming out.
And you don't find it annoying?
I don't find it annoying because it's content that I want.
Yeah.
And it alerts me to the things that are important to me.
You ever converted from one?
I haven't ever converted from one, which is really interesting. I've always converted through their emails. I've never converted, and I've looked. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I've clicked on it. I've gone back to it several times. I've put an item in my cart, but I've never actually converted.
Interesting.
But I think part of it has to do with my time, right? So if you're going to be sending me something, I have to look at it on my phone. I can't really multitask. Whereas if I'm listening to a conference call, I can sit on my laptop and I can shop for purses. Who happens to also be one of my clients. So I'm helping them from a revenue perspective.
Nice. Kate Spade is one of your clients?
It is, yeah.
Oh my God, dream client.
Yeah, right? And so that, that's why I do it as well, is just to better understand, how do they engage with their customers, and then how can we tie that back to the content that we're putting in emails or putting out and suggesting to put on their website. So it all comes full circle.
All right, so here's a question. So down the Kate Spade path, have you ever... And it's probably different because you're working on the account, but put yourself in the shoes of someone that's not on the account. Have you ever searched for Kate Spade purses, like a branded search?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
This is something that we're seeing a lot of data that suggests that, everyone's talking about omni-channel right now, right? And it's really, clients and even, I want to see the value of a given channel. But it's getting really challenging to do that. Actually, it's there's more data now than we've ever had, but particularly with regard to building a brand, we're starting to see across all of our e-commerce clients. I can't think of a single client where this doesn't apply to, where quote unquote engagement or middle top of the funnel ad spend is contributing to branded search. Meaning you might scroll around on Facebook and Insta or even TikTok, interact with the brand, engage, swipe, comment, view, and then branded search is growing. And then and maybe even more specifically branded shopping, right? I used to think about it the other way. I used to think about, well, Google search is going to drive traffic, and then we're going to convert people on Facebook with ads. We're starting to see the opposite, where people are seeing, engaging, learning about brands, and then going to Google, searching for the brand, converting. Is that consistent with what you're seeing? Different?
I haven't seen that. I would be interested to hear how brands are tracking that too.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what's driving that too.
Yeah.
Is what is it exactly that you're looking for that maybe you couldn't find in a different channel?
Yeah, it's tricky. We were just talking about this morning around this brand Free Fly. So this fishing brand, which is not one of our clients. I would love if it was. So Free Fly, if you're listening, we can help you. But so I see these ads on Facebook, and really great ads. For the last month, I've been looking at this content, scrolling, clicking, viewing, watching, whatever. I know I'm in all of their retargeting pools.
Yeah.
And then I finally decide, you know what, I'm going to buy one of these things. So I go to Google and I type in Free Fly shirts and I convert. Google gets the credit.
Yeah.
Right. The conversion is attributed to Google.
Right.
But Facebook built the brand for me. And
so I guess personally, from that experience, why not just click through an ad versus going back and searching for it?
Because at the very moment that I decided, I wasn't on Facebook.
Yeah.
The second I decided, I was like, I'm going to buy those.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I was at my son's baseball game.
Yeah.
I was sitting there and I was like, man, I need to get one of those shirts. Finally, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And so I pulled up my browser, searched for Free Fly.
Yeah.
And bought the thing.
Yeah.
But I had interacted with him at least 20 times on Facebook. And somewhere in their digital stack, I'm pixeled as a Facebook page engager.
Yeah.
But and maybe I, depending on the conversion window, if I did it within 7 days, maybe Facebook took the credit.
Right.
But Google sure as shit took the credit because I searched and clicked a Google ad. Yeah. But it was a branded ad, and we're
I guess. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's I feel like we've talked about this a lot, Ryan. Like between 1950 and 2000, for 50 years, it was all about brands, impression. Brand building, right? Madison Avenue, logo, brand, story, creative. And then Google became a thing in 2000-ish. And everyone's like, well, you can track ROAS, conversion rates. Like we can directly attribute your ad spend. And for 20 years, that was all anyone cared about. I feel like we're maybe regressing back to the mean a little bit, where brand matters again.
Yeah. Well, I think so too. And I think it's the context and like what triggered it, what influenced you, where were you, and when did you have a moment to actually decide you wanted to purchase it? You were in that window. Right? You were the, 1% of the population that's ready to buy at that exact moment. Yeah. And so the best way that you could find it was to then go on their website. Their ads and everything did the right thing.
They did exactly.
It did exactly what they wanted them to do.
It just makes me wonder if a brand of that size is probably fairly sophisticated. My guess is that they probably understand that their top of funnel brand spend contributes, right? But some smaller brands, and a lot of the brands that we work with are small. We work with a lot of small growing brands. They want to see ROAS at each channel level. Yeah. Which is fine, but when to get over that hump, you have to start thinking about omni-channel.
Yes. You do. So. Well, and you also have to have that mixture of like paid, owned, and earned. Yeah. And one channel can't do it all. Yeah. And so I think a lot of times they won't invest in like the organic content or the they'll expect an ad to connect with an audience, right? Yeah. And get them to click. Yeah. And then you get them to say your website. But if you don't have the content there for them to engage with you, they don't know anymore. And they're going to leave. There's nothing there compelling so that they can give you their information to continuously stay in touch. If you don't have, say it's a B2B experience. And I clicked on your ad because I'm in the market. I'm looking for some type of product or service. And I go to your website and there's really not a whole lot there. There's maybe a couple of pictures and a couple of words and maybe 2 or 3 pages of your site, but there's nothing there that I can take with me. Yeah. So why am I going to give over my information if you're not going to give me what I need? Yeah. And so if you create that type of content, you create white papers and ebooks and whatever that is that I can then continuously go back to and say, okay, they understand my business. I'm going to consider them in my pool of, viable companies that I would want to partner with. Yeah. And then I'm willing to give over my information. And you have to, again, go back to that dialogue and make sure that you're creating that organic content. And it can be curated, right? You don't have to create everything. But you have to be able to do that so people understand who your brand is, what their values are, and make sure it aligns with theirs. And if you're just relying on paid, you're kind of missing an opportunity there.
I couldn't agree more. Especially in B2B. I mean, I think it's definitely true in B2C, but in B2B, when sales cycles are longer, and then there's the research and consideration associated with making a decision, and particularly if there are multiple people involved in the decision.
Yeah.
If it's a piece of software, say.
Yeah.
I want to use, Klaviyo for email. And there are 6 people involved that I need to convince of why Klaviyo. It'd be just as easy for me to go to Klaviyo, convert, sign up, start the trial, and go.
Yeah.
But someone else on the team might have a question about how does Klaviyo do segmentation,
right?
Or how can I do SMS and email?
Yeah.
How does it connect to Shopify? So, that goes back to you ever read the book They Ask You Answer? Great book about this guy whose marketing strategy was just to answer questions, stupid simple, but he was a pool installation guy.
Okay.
And he was a small business owner in Florida, wrote this book called They Ask You Answer. He could not figure out how to market his pool business, and he realized, listen, my clients have these 20 questions, and I'm just going to answer them all in video. Questions like, do I want ceramic or tile? What type of season do I want? When do I want to put my pool in? How much does it cost? What's the floor plan?
Right.
Should I do what above ground or below ground? And that's his content strategy.
Yeah. Well, and I see B2C brands doing that as well. One of my brands is a direct-to-consumer brand, and they provide you all this value. You can go on and scan your face to find out what skin problems that you have.
Really?
And it's those are the cool things that I want to engage with.
On your phone?
You can do it on your phone or your desktop. Yep.
Wow.
You can match a color match of foundation, makeup.
Is it gated?
It's not gated. And that's the cool part about it is that they're giving me this content. And then once I say, okay, great, you've scanned my profile. I want my results. I am more than willing to give you all my contact information.
Yeah.
So I think that's content that, B2C has to consider as well.
That's the intersection of content and commerce. Somebody who is, and even that sort of straddles the line of UX too. That's very different than putting a comparison chart of skin types, which is, still great. Right. But interacting with the site is a whole nother level. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how did okay, this is off, on a tangent, but how does a brand execute on that? I mean, getting a development team to build that, and getting a marketing director to think long game enough to okay, we're going to build this whole experience, and it's going to cost, I don't know, a couple $100,000 to do it right.
Right.
What kind of a forward-thinking CMO do you have to find to make that decision?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and
how's that going to drive ROAS tomorrow?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, is so many of these brands, you're not going to recognize ROAS tomorrow, right? You're investing in these customers, and they're investing in you by buying your products. And so again, back to that symbiotic relationship where you're giving each other what they need. Yeah. And so as you look at that opportunity, you're looking at, okay, I want to continue fostering this relationship. What's the barrier that's there that I can help remove? And for women, finding or men or whomever is wearing skin, whoever wants to wear the makeup, what's that holdup? And if you're a DTC website, obviously you can't go in and you can't test them out. You're not in a grocery store or wherever you're buying your makeup at, the Clinique counter or whatever. And you can't do a little sample on your hand. And so that's
especially during COVID, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the experience that is going to convert someone if they're having that physical interaction with your product. So how do you move that into the digital space to then remove that barrier, but still give them that experience with your brand that they're craving?
So in a case like that, do you think it's easier to make a case to a CMO in that scenario, where I would imagine that kind of a business has more repeats?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And that's, I don't know how often women buy that kind of stuff, but once a month, once a quarter?
Yeah. Every month or two, depending on how much you use it. Admittedly, during COVID, I didn't.
But they might know that, their repeat customer value is X, right?
Yes.
So they're more willing to lose money on the front end.
Well, and you can increase that, ticket value as well as you say, hey, great, you matched this foundation. These are complementary eye colors or complementary like blush colors or whatever it is. You bundle them, right? And then it makes the decision easier for the customer. And because they've already built that trust with you, they're more willing to convert.
Very interesting. Man, okay, we could talk for hours about this stuff. So, talk to me about tools. Like, what kind of tools are you guys using? I mean, I know DEG's, been long on the train of Salesforce Cloud.
Yeah.
Give me just high level of the stack you guys are using.
Yeah. So I would say my most sophisticated customer has 3 different platforms. So they use Salesforce Commerce Cloud.
Cool.
So using that for their website and of course, transactions. They've got a CRM, so Salesforce Sales Cloud that, captures all that information, puts it into, an organized format. And then they've got Salesforce Marketing Cloud, which is a marketing automation platform.
Funnels, all that. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And
workflows.
So you can build all of these journeys within Marketing Cloud, and you can understand how the person is using the site and how they're engaging with their content. And then, create these journeys and create these automated campaigns that just run, right? You consistently bring people into that funnel and they consistently move into that journey. And so you're constantly engaging with people and reminding them why they signed up with you. And you're pulling that information and you're creating those personalized messages to them, and they're more likely to engage in it. So if if they engaged in, say, a semi-annual sale the year before, let's go ahead and send them another email. Or if you know that say they're on a subscription plan and they're getting ready to expire, right? It's a 3-month subscription, and your renewal is coming up. Send it out to them. Automate that, right? Because it's a really nice reminder. And then there you go. You've got a repurchase. So those types of things are really smart. The other thing that people are getting into is kind of the identity market, and that was something that you and I have talked about in the past. Is with the cookies going away, we have to figure out how is it that we're identifying people that are coming to our site without them actually telling us who they are. And so there are within that client, they are adding identity platforms to their mix there, to their tech stack.
Wow.
So that they can then constantly get that information and be able to connect with customers.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's smart.
It is smart. Well, man, I have to tell you, I never thought in a million years, 20 years ago, when we were sitting there selling newspaper ads at the Kansan, that we would be sitting here 20 years from now talking about cookies and automation and tech stacks.
It didn't even exist at that time.
It did not exist. Well, listen, we're just shy of an hour here. I really appreciate you coming on. These conversations get better and better. The deeper we get into the weeds and the details of execution and actually getting this stuff done, these conversations are starting to get better and better. And I sincerely appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Adrienne Dopf, I'm sorry, what was the last name again?
Baranowski.
Adrienne Dopf-Baranowski, account director, DEG. Someone in my life told me one time, don't ever trust anybody that doesn't have old friends. And we've known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to consider you an old friend. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Cool.